Jules Wade was a librarian before the outbreak that was lucky enough to attach himself to a group of survivors that had taken shelter in the country club south of Riverside. After internal strife caused a horde of undead to overwhelm their home, Jules finds himself injured and on the run, having sustained a stab wound to his arm and scratches on both his hand and shin. Able to catch his breath at a nearby service center, he knows that his time of relying on others is past, and now only his wits and will to survive will keep him alive. Searching the nearby buildings, he scrapes together some basic tools which he stores in the trunk of the Jeep he has discovered the key to. While preparing what he assumed was his ticket out of here, the first stray undead stumbles from the fog and forces Jules to fight in his injured state, sending shooting stabs of pain up his arm until he resorts to stomping the undead's face. Finding his ride out of gas and the bandage on his forearm already soiled with blood of the undead, Jules knows that he must strike out into the country club in search of fuel and food. Only making it a short way down the road before his injured leg ached and the light began to fade, Jules decides it's smarter to hold up in his temporary home so he wasn't stumbling around in the dark. On his way back, Jules' worst fears are realized as he spots shambling silhouettes moving through the distant fog, streaming from the north and signaling the migration of the deadly horde. Witnessing the same horrors that had ended his group, Jules is faced with an endless stream of undead rolling through the trees like a wave of relentless death. In his current state, fighting even one of these zombies was a monumental task, but now drowsiness and pain made it a near impossibility. Forced to run, and ignoring the agony building in his leg, he eventually isolates a handful that he can dispatch before he begins the tedious trek back to his shelter. Discovering his previous safety now haunted by the infected, Jules finds himself cast out into the cold night, hungry, exhausted, terrified, and nearly defenseless. Finding every road and path plagued with undead, he can barely manage to swing his frying pan as his body begins to go into full mutiny. Crawling through the thick woods, he eventually stumbles upon a stream and what appears to be relative safety from the deadly shadows that pursue him. Checking on his arm, the hopelessness only mounts as he smells the pungent smell of infection seeping from his mistreated wound. Raggedly determined to find shelter as the cold night begins to sink into his bones, he finds even the footpaths guarded by the shambling horrors of this fresh nightmare. Struggling to keep his eyes open, his fragile composure shatters as he hears the blaring of a security system from the building he had been working towards. Watching as the undead hounds march towards the signal like a tireless army, Jules once again crawls along the nearby creek in hopes of finding another moment to catch his ragged breath. Finding a place to rest as the first lights of dawn peek through the autumn trees, Jules underestimates the draw of sleep before he suddenly finds himself waking up on the damp earth late into the day. Knowing he has to escape this tormented golf course, Jules roughly locates the direction of Riverside and begins to drag his ragged body across the unkept grounds, all the while feeling his stomach tightening as the beginnings of starvation set in. Desperation drives him to discover some nettles and a grasshopper, which he forces between his lips, while the overwhelming stress finally forces a single tear to roll down his grimy cheek. Night begins to creep in again, as every stray shambler serves as a large drain on Jules' already slim reserves of energy, causing another outburst of tears as the horrors of this world never seem to end. Collapsing on the ground once again, Jules struggles to truly sleep until a splattering of rain fully stirs him from his tattered state. Continuing his trudge, he finally stumbles upon an isolated stretch of road that provides the only true swell of happiness since his flight had begun. Spying a nearby postal van, he uses the last of his energy to dispose of the lingering workers before securing the key to the worn vehicle that might be his salvation. The van was in shambles, but the engine eventually roars to life and finally allows Jules to create distance between him and the swarms of undead plaguing his previous home.